Shalom, shalom, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Nakaf, Badash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere here. Once again, it's your brother Abawan, and I'm back here with another video. And what I'll be going into today is the new moon Sabbaths and how to basically, run the math and run the numbers on how to tell when it is a new moon, when it is a Sabbath, and how to follow the calendar of the Hebrew Israelite calendar for the new moons and the high holy days. Okay, so first thing is first. The first thing we have to establish is how these are actually calculated or how these are actually measured. And it's not midnight to midnight as it is in this kingdom, because that is the major thing that confuses our people when it comes to calculating high holy days, calculating new moons, calculating Sabbath. Is they are taking the knowledge of calculation of days and months and weeks and years from this kingdom and bringing it into the truth. And what you should understand is that we that are in this truth, right, the Hebrew Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, our people use a completely different calendar than from what is used in this world. Okay, what is used in this world is called the Gregorian calendar, and the Gregorian calendar is heliocentric in nature, so yeah. And that means basically it revolves around the sun. So what is used to calculate times and seasons and dates in this kingdom is a solar calendar, a calendar that revolves around the sun, which of course goes back to sun worship. Okay, but rather, what should actually be used, the proper way in which to calculate time, and even the scriptures tells you this, is actually by using the lunar or the moon, because the moon is the what is used to calculate time. And hold on, let me get that. That should be the book of Wisdom of Solomon 8. So let me quickly go to that. That should be Wisdom 8. Okay, no, that's not it. Okay, yes, Wisdom. Okay, this is that. I was thinking of another princess, so that, yeah. Let me just jump to that. Okay, no wisdom, so okay, no wisdom. Ecclesiasticus 43, verse 6, and it reads, He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feasts, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. And the reason why, it's just say that because if you go into the etymology of the word moon, the word moon goes back to the word month. And the Most High, when He created the heavens and the earth, let's get that precept. Let me quickly go to that. So that should be. Hold on, let me get this real quick. That when the sun and the moon were created. Yeah, here it is. So this is the book of Genesis 1. Genesis 1 verse 14. And the power said, Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be a sign for seasons and for days and for years. Because basically the sun, the moon, and even the stars, all right, because that's where you get your astrology from, and that is true astrology, which is using the stars to determine the period of time that is there. That's why you have different constellations for different months, okay? And it's not some horoscope, predicting your personality bullshit like these people of this world use it for. As it's written that for the good are all things made goodly, and so to the wicked are they made for evil. But what they're actually meant to be for is for the calculation of days and months, okay? The heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars, are meant to be used as calculators to know what period of time it is, okay? Issachar at the time, because you should know that Issachar of the Northern Kingdom, they were very good at doing those kind of calculations. They were very good at stargazing, looking up to the sky and descending and calculating the period of time that you are in. Okay, what time, what the actual date, and Isaka was good at that. Okay, normally you should be able to look up to the sky and be able to tell, okay, this is the time, this is the day, not really the day, but this is the month, and so on, and things like that. Okay, you're able to tell the time and the month by looking up to the sky. That's why you have a sundial, right? And then you also have a lunar cycle to represent the months. But let's continue on. So I'm going back to this right here, okay? And basically, what I was saying, somebody was asking me about the Sabbath and the new moon and how they are actually calculated. And I have this handy app right here, timeanddates.com, right? A web app basically. But what this does is that it can give you, what I always use this for is to actually check for the sunrise and sunset periods, okay? So let me open this up real quick because you can use this app to check for sunrise and sunset. And the reason why I'm saying that you need to use this app to check for sunrise and sunset is because the end of the day, like I said, it is not at 12 midnight as is taught in this kingdom, but rather following a lunar calendar, the end of the day and the beginning of a new day actually happens at sunset. Okay, so when the sun goes down, that is when a one day ends and a new day begins. So that's why I always so that is the main reason why I use this time and date is because it gives you the exact sunrise and sunset. They even give you the lunar phases, moonrise and new set and moon set in your part of the world, your region. Whenever the Sabbath comes, I use this to always check what time the sun sets at. I can see that for different dates of the month, right? For the different dates of the month of April, you can see the sunrise time, the sunset. They'll even give you the day length. They'll give you so many different basically the so many different what the term I want to use, meteorological events, and basically so many different things that is going on in the skies, okay, with the sun, the moon, and the stars. When there is a eclipse, right, they'll post up a notification that there is expected to be an eclipse on this day. And today is the 10th of April, 2023, right? The hopeful year that we hope that all the prophecies will come to pass. And on this day, sunset in Lagos, Nigeria was at 6:54 p.m. Okay, and that's usually when the period when it starts to get darker and darker. Because right now we're in the equinox period, more or less. Longer days, shorter nights, right? Right now we're not in an equinox period, so like that was my bad. I made a mistake. We're not in an equinox period. We're in a period of equal day and nights, right? We're not yet in an equinox period, but anyway, when we're getting closer to winter, when we're getting closer to the end of the year, last November, December, you will see that the sunset period will start becoming earlier and earlier, even to the point of the sunset coming around 5:30 and things like that. Okay, but now the major, the major confusion comes in how do you calculate Sabbath? How do you calculate the the Sabbath and the new moons? Okay, using you know with because we here at Great Muslim we follow the scriptures when the script we follow the Sabbath worship according to the scriptures, right? So we observe the new moon as a Sabbath, and we observe each Sabbath day as each Sabbath day at the correct time, more or less. So now this is let me get that. I think that should be up. All right, so okay, like camera go, the phone got cut off there. So back to what I was saying. Okay, in this kingdom, all the Sabbaths are being kept Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, and basically, no matter what time period of time it is, it's always in the same format, Friday sundown, Saturday sundown. But we've already established that the calendar that was used in the scriptures and the one that I used in this time is completely different. So let me see if I can quickly go to the browser and just see if I can show that. So let me just look for that browser. Here it is, the DuckDuckGo. I always prefer to use this one. It's very lightweight, quick, and very well lightweight and quick. So that's imagine what I was saying. Yeah. So I'll start with typing in the Gregorian calendar. You have to bear with me, Slovakia. This is Nigeria that we're talking about. Network is not that fast. You have to just wait for everything to load quicker. Here it is. Let's go. And this is the calendar that is in use today. So this is the Gregorian calendar. I'll just say a brief overview of it. The Gregorian calendar is today's internationally accepted civil calendar and is also known as the Western or Christian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is the most widely used calendar in the world today. It is the calendar used in the International Standard for Representation of Times and Dates, that is ISO. It is a solar calendar based on a 365-day common year divided into 12 months of irregular lengths. 11 of the months have either 30 or 31 days, while the second month, February, has only 28 days during the common year. And of course, you already know all this about the Gregorian calendar. But what I actually wanted to get is where it says that in the second paragraph, and you can clearly see it is a solar calendar, okay? And the reason why they call it a solar calendar is because the measurement of the dates is revolves around the sun. That's why they always tell you that, oh, it takes 365 days for the earth to revolve around the sun, because basically that is the calculation that they're using for the Gregorian calendar. But in all actuality, what they should be using is a lunar calendar. So what I want to do is I want to find a way to type this in to show that our people historically used a lunar calendar, okay? Which is why you see the, Far East Asians, right? The Chinese and the Japanese, the Moabites and Ammonites, right? They use, they have a different New Year, and they celebrate New Year at a different time because they also use the lunar calendar, okay? And in the lunar calendar, New Year actually comes in during the springtime. Which is why you always see, which is why even with the Jews, the first month is always around March or April, okay? Because it's actually when the first month is supposed to be. Because actually what you have with this Gregorian calendar is that the month of January being the beginning of the year, it goes back to Janus. And I think the brother in Italy did a video on that as well. It actually goes back to pagan worship. The year ending in December and beginning in January goes back to pagan worship, because basically what you have is that the year end they made Esau Edom made it so at the year ends during the winter solstice, okay, which is a deep and heavy day in among the heathen, man, because during the winter solstice, like I am like when you do when you get to that period, you will actually see that the nights are longer and the days are shorter. So from the transition of the winter solstice back into the regular, length of days and nights, okay, and there's a lot of history going into that. The pagans believe that, rather the heathen believe that the reason why the period of winter solstice, it always got darker early, is because basically it was signaling the potential end of the world, and every time they got out of the winter solstice, they always had a celebration or a feast, going into it. And that is where you have your New Year, January, Janus celebration. Because with Janus, you have a two-headed god. One head is looking back and one head is looking forward. It's supposed to represent, the transition between the old to the new. Okay, which is why the first month of the year, January, is actually based off and named after that god. Okay, I think that's a Greek or Roman god or so. But anyway, let's get into this. So yeah, basically the Hebrew calendar is also the Jewish calendar, which is based off our calendar, is lunar as opposed to solar. So let's read this: the Jewish calendar. Jewish communities around the world use the Jewish or Hebrew calendar to determine the dates of religious observances and rituals. In Israel, it is also used for agricultural and civil purposes alongside the Gregorian calendar. Jewish time reckoning is lunisolar, which means that the calendar keeps in sync with the natural cycles of both the sun and the moon, featuring a body of complex regulations, exceptions, and mathematical rules. It is also designed to satisfy a number of requirements conveyed in the Jewish Holy Scripture. And this is what the small hearts have done. They've mixed in the they mixed in the words of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai with the ways of this world. What is a lunisolar calendar? Okay, originally the original Hebrew calendar was actually only lunar. When we're talking about the acknowledgement or or basically, and I don't know the best term to use, but when you are keeping time, right, months and years, it's supposed to follow the lunar cycles. And the lunar cycles that I'm talking about, and we'll go and bring this out right now. This is the lunar cycle I'm talking about, okay? And you see here, moon phases. And right now, the moon is at 77.1%, which is a waning gibbous. And what this means, and you'll find out if you actually go deeper into the moon phases, that you have essentially four phases of the moon, and it's showing you this right here. You have the full moon. Okay, this isn't the actual. This isn't okay. It's more than four phases. So yeah, it's more than four phases. You have the full moon, the crescent moon, and the okay. Yeah, it's actually four phases. The full moon, the crescent moon, the half moon, and the new moon. Okay, let's see what you have here is a crescent moon, which is a waning gibbous. And what that means is that the moon is about to be refreshed again. The month is about to be refreshed because we are in the third or so. You have to let's just quickly jump down and check that. Well, we should be in the third week of this month according to the lunar calendar. Okay, in the normal Gregorian calendar, I believe this month is today is April 11th or April 10th. So according to the Gregorian calendar, we're a little bit into almost at the halfway stage of this month. But according to the lunar calendar, we are actually in the third week of this month. Okay, so the lunar calendar. So when we use the lunar calendar in our keeping of the Sabbath, as they did in the Holy Land in the ancient times, it begins with a new moon. Basically, when the moon cycle is refreshed, and you look into the sky, you don't see a moon, right? You don't see the moonlight. You don't see the light of the moon shining its light or reflecting light from the sun, as Esau Edom says. Well, but we actually know, according to the scriptures, that the moon has its own light. Okay, that the moon is its own light source. But let me go and get this right. I wanted to get some precepts going into the new moon to show you that the new moon is also a Sabbath, because back in the ancient world, the new moon was kept as a Sabbath. But it's funny that the Jewish community, the small hearts right now, because they are converts and because they're not dealing 100% in the scriptures, they do not keep the new moon as a Sabbath. So let's get this. This is the book of First Corinthians 23, verse 30. And to stand every morning to thank and praise Yahweh, and likewise at even, and to offer all burnt sacrifices unto Yahweh in the Sabbaths, in the new moons, and on the set feast, by number according to the order commanded unto them continually before Yahweh. Now understand the different times in which they say the burnt offering should be sacrificed, or the burnt sacrifice should be offered. The Sabbaths, the new moon, and the set feast. Now was the feast days, which are the high holy days. That's your Pashak, that's your Purim, that's your Feast of Weeks, Feast of Trumpets, memorial blowing of the trumpet, so on and so forth. And what you have to understand is that every high holy day among our people is a Sabbath. So on the Passover, it's a Sabbath, right? Memorial blowing of trumpet, Sabbath, right? The Atonement, Sabbath, Purim, Sabbath. All these high holy days are kept as Sabbaths, because if you go into the etymology of the word holiday, the word goes back to holy day. And how do our people keep a day holy, hollow a day? By keeping the Sabbath on that day. And the new moon is the same way. On this day, it's also a Sabbath of rest. Okay, let's continue reading. Let's continue getting some more. And it's all going to the same thing. But this is the book of Second Chronicles 2, verse 4. Behold, I build an house to the name of Yahweh my power, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual shewbread, and for the burnt offering morning and evening, on the Sabbaths and on the new moons, and on the solemn feast of Yahweh our power. This is an ordinance forever to Israel. And this is when King Solomon built up the temple, and he said, made this statement. And I believe this was King Solomon that made this statement. Yeah, King Solomon. And basically, yeah, you're getting the point right now. The reason why we celebrate the Sabbath on the new moon is because the new moon was also kept as a Sabbath in the Holy Land. Let's continue reading. Let's look for more. Here's another one. Ezekiel 46, and I'll start from verse 1. Ezekiel 46, verse 1. Thus saith the one Yahweh, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. And this is showing you that that the new moon is revered and treated as a Sabbath in the scriptures. Okay, and the prince shall, and now Ezekiel 46, verse 2. And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of the gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before Yahweh in the Sabbaths and in the new moons, because the new moon is also a Sabbath. So with that, our individual right there, all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rakak, Wadash, Wa Abad Babal, and watch out for part 2.